Spiritual awakening is frequently described as a journey to the top of a mountain. We leave our attachments and our worldliness behind and slowly make our way to the top. At the peak, we have transcended all pain. The only problem with this metaphor is that we leave all the others behind. Our drunken brother, our schizophrenic sister, our tormented animals and friends. Their suffering continues unrelieved by our personal escape. In the process of discovering bodhicitta, the journey goes down, not up. It's as if the mountain pointed toward the center of the earth instead of reaching into the sky. Instead of transcending the suffering of all creatures, we move toward the turbulence and doubt. We jump into it. We slide into it. We tiptoe into it. We move toward it however we can. We explore the reality and unpredictability of insecurity and pain, and we try not to push it away. If it takes years, if it takes lifetimes, we let it be as it is. At our own pace, without speed or aggression, we move down and down and down. With us move millions of others, our companions in awakening from fear. At the bottom, we discover water, the healing water of bodhicitta. Right down there in the thick of things, we discover the love that will not die. Anybody know who that's by? Yes! Pema Chodron. Pema Chodron. I wanted to just kind of bring us together with that for many reasons. It's got so much wisdom in it, you know, and it's a real corrective to whatever fantasies we might come with. Or, I mean, maybe fantasies is not quite the right word, but whatever, I don't know, models or impressions or idealizations we may have of practice. That it's a path. I mean, it's framed as a path for the end of suffering in all the classic early teachings of Buddhism, and throughout, really. But to think that that means we're sort of leaving it behind, that we're transcending this world, is, I think, absolutely wrong, personally. You know, now, I mean, others might disagree with me, and with good reason. But my view, from my own experience, and from most of the teachings that I've been lucky enough to receive over decades now of practice, would confirm that the point isn't we're leaving anything behind. We're not transcending anything. When I hear people talking about self-transcendent experience, I mean, I know it's often used as a kind of shorthand to indicate the kind of experience that spiritual practices can lead to, especially a practice like this Zen, which has a full-bore emphasis or clarity around an experience known as Kensho, which I assume you'll all have heard of, which means seeing into the real nature of things. It's a sudden glimpse, or suddenly sometimes more than a glimpse, of the way things really are somehow, which doesn't deny the way they appear, but it's seeing what that appearance really is. And that includes not just the things around us, but what we ourselves are. And it's never revealed on one side only, actually, although it can seem that way. But when people talk about self-transcendent experience, researchers do a lot now, as a shorthand for that kind of experience, it's wrong. The formulation is wrong. It's not self-transcendence. It's not that you're checking out from yourself, above it, transcending it. You're just seeing what yourself really has been all along. It's a coming back to what you've actually always been all along. It's not at all a sort of escape. a journey up. Because this title of this talk is actually the same as the title of the last talk I gave at Mountain Cloud about, I think it was mid-July, I think, if my memory is right, like kind of 10 weeks ago, 11 weeks ago, The World and Us. It's a great title if you're into Zen and stuff, because you can talk about just about anything. It'd be very hard to stray off topic. And I was just sort of reflecting on, in a way that, the practice is all about the world and us, in different ways. It's about finding how to live as an individual, how to live in this world, how to live in this world. How do you, personally find your own sort of true path in this world? Or how do you find your path to your true path? How do you do that? And basically, everybody here, I think I would assume, at least has an inkling that the practice of being still and quiet every day for a piece of time, a little bit of time, and perhaps occasionally having some guidance, and perhaps occasionally going in for a deeper period of time of stillness and quiet, that's going to help with finding a path to your true path in life, what you need to be in this world. And you may think, and you may find, no, there's nothing in particular. There's ways I need to show up, but there isn't a particular path. That's absolutely great, fine. And whatever path we may think we have when we're in our 20s, who knows? In your 30s, it might be quite different, And that is your path. The winding path is the path. In Zen, there's a great koan. The path, how do you walk straight on a narrow mountain road with 99 curves? It's like switchbacks going up a mountainside, 99 of them. But you've got to go straight, the koan says. How do you do that? Well, we're not going to go into that right now. But I might just say, you sort of can't help but. You can't help but go straight, actually. It's just clarification. So yeah, how do we live ourselves in this world? What is our true relationship with this world? And it seems like the world and us, as the title suggests, that's two things, obviously. Me and the world. Me in here, world out there. But actually, where is me? Because this body is presumably part of the world. If I could accept that, then I am a little nugget inside here. I'm not the skin bag. At one level, I'd say the skin bag I'm all of what's within the skin bag. Skin plus interior thereof, right? That's all me. But then I have to say, well, clearly this foot is sort of part of the world. It's not. Yeah, so it's a little trickier. So really, the me is actually not. Sometimes I feel it's all this skin bag, but other times I'd say no. I feel the pain. So it's a me, the pain in my toe, let's say. Pain in my toe is not really me. I'm a little, some kind of little nugget within. Yeah? And this foot is part of the world, body is part of the world. I'm still preserved from the world because I'm still a little nucleus in here somewhere that knows it's separate from the world. That is unmistakably separate from the world. Because it perceives the world and it receives impressions of the world, and it decides how it's going to operate to the best of its ability in the world. Although we now know there's a thing called the unconscious. We've known it for 126 years since Freud published Interpretation of Dreams, 1899 was it? Or something? The unconscious actually makes us, we realize, operate in lots of ways as well that our conscious mind doesn't have full control over. And of course, it's a lot more complicated than that. But basically, I can feel like an agent in the world. And that's me, in here. Somewhere in here, there's a me. So what's that? World and us, world and self. There's self in here, world out there. So Zen is a tradition, a school, a path within Buddhism that really targets that construct, world and me. And it invites us to examine it. I mean, it's a lot more than that, and there's different schools of Zen, of course, and they're not all the same. They're not all the same in their emphasis and the way they frame practice and the way they then practice within the frame that they have for practice. But in some schools of Zen, that relationship, me and the world, is sort of somewhere in the target zone of what the practice sees itself as being for, because it can be investigated, because that fundamental assumption that we make and have been making all our lives is actually an assumption. It's not a fact. It's an assumption, but we don't think it is. So, kind of becoming. I don't know whether you all agree with me. Maybe you think you don't make that assumption. Maybe you're all enlightened Buddhas who don't make that assumption at all. But I certainly have been much of my life, and it seems like a lot of people do as well. That I'm in here, the world's out there. Fundamental assumption. So, in this kind of Zen, and I'm very open to being corrected on this, but it seems to me that it's that fundamental relationship, that and world and us, that and gets investigated. And one of the ways it gets investigated, as some of you will know, either to your delight or to your horror and in frustration and boredom, is with the Koan, especially with the Coan Moo. And sometimes I've felt that the Coan Moo comes to be a stand-in for any kind of external experience. It's a sound in the mind, but that's still external to me. Okay, does that make sense? Like, I'm hearing Moo, we're trained to, well, we're encouraged to try to repeat Moo in the mind on each exhale. Actually, how many of you are sitting with Moo, or have sat with Moo? Okay, a fair number have sat with Moo. Okay, so many of you have some idea. And those of you who haven't, do you have any idea what I'm talking about? Or do any of you not have a clue what this Moo? I've never heard Moo before.
Actually, I have not.
Okay, thank you. Have you heard of the word Koan? Yeah. Okay. So Moo is one of the sort of classic koans. So the full story is that a monk asked this master Joshu or Jiao, "Does a dog have Buddha nature? Does a dog have Buddha nature?" And Jiao answers, "Moo," or "Wu." It would have been, I think, in Chinese in his day, and that sound has become a widely used koan in Zen practice for over 1,000 years now. So the logic of it is that you start to sit with this Moo sound in your mind, and it gradually becomes kind of a question that sort of, what is this thing? What is this sound? And what's the relationship of me to Moo? And I want to say it's sort of good. It's good because it's so small. It's such a tight little focus, me and Moo. It's such an intimate little laboratory, me and Moo, me and Moo, me and Moo, all in my mind, rather than me and the mountain or something, which would work as well. What's really the relationship between me and this wall? Me and the wall, me and the seat, me and the mountain, me and the trees on the hillside. Me and Moo. Little stand-in for everything else, right? And so in Zen, this experience that has been kind of, it's sort of been, how can I put it? I mean, you can see that it's been, upheld as a kind of important insight, important discovery for human beings in the Zen tradition since maybe about 527 CE, the year 527 CE, something like that, when Bodhidharma, or was it 567, when Bodhidharma, great Indian monk, came to China and sort of sowed the seeds of Zen in China. And he said there are 4 characteristics of this practice, 4 marks of Zen. It's a special mind-to-mind transition, or heart-to-heart transmission. Outside scripture, not relying on words and letters, pointing to the human heart-mind and finding Buddha, discovering awakened nature. So it's just looking at your own heart-mind, your own self, your own soul, your heart and soul kind of thing, getting to see it, and there you find Buddha nature, awakened nature. So it's not, the revolutionary side of it was that you don't have to go through many lifetimes of gradual cultivation. You don't have to study all the sutras. You don't have to study the whole Vinaya, the code of monastic practice. You don't have to be a monastic even. Anybody, all they have to do is sort of see their own, this self, and see what it really has been all along. And awakened nature shows itself. Original nature shows itself. Buddha nature is discovered. It's not discovered actually out there. And that is what the experience known as Kensho is about. It's about making the discovery for ourselves in a way that absolutely nobody else could do it for us. Absolutely no one can do it for you, for us. And it really is, it's sort of intimately you discovering something about you that is although it's a discovery, it's never actually been hidden. And what is it? Well, one is, it does show up in different ways, but they're all really faces of the same thing. And one of the ways you can think of it is like it's this sudden golden bridge between me and Moo, between me and the world. A sudden shaft of unassailable connection. It's not a strong enough word. Bridge. Not the right word, but let it stand in for now. Channel between me and the world. Like there's a river that makes us inseparable. Okay, so that's not a great analogy, I'm sorry, but suddenly it's seeing that actually the and has been wrong. Rip out the and, world and us. Take away the and, world, us are one. And again, it shows up in different ways. But that's the invitation, the possibility, the charge that has been running in the veins of Zen for a long, long time. World and us. Let's see, maybe that's just about it. Yeah, okay. Well, let's see. Are there any questions at this point? Anything bubbling up for anyone?
Pass the mic. Over here.
I have just recently seen, I don't know if you ever have seen a video of Himari. She is a Japanese violinist. And she started her concerts when she was 8 years old. And when you see this child, she's now 14. She disappears in the music. There's just the music. And I think Moo is something like that. So there is no thought of and. If if you do music or poetry, or this is just an example.
Yes, nice. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, so I think that's a great little pointer actually for if anybody is interested in working with Moo, or or any other koan for that matter, is can you if you just keep doing it, if you really are as dogged as you can be about it, and that's not a reference to the does a dog have Buddha? Just be dogged about it. Just keep coming back to it. Your mind will wander, keep coming back. Actually, in time, you can start doing it on autopilot, and Moo starts doing it by itself. And then actually, as Maria says, you can also then suddenly get completely absorbed by it. And I think of it as if Moo is out here, that's the Moo that I think I'm working on. Moo. I'm gazing at Moo and doing Moo and hearing Moo. There it is. But meanwhile, actually, the real Moo is sneaking up behind me, getting ready to swallow everything. And it can't do it if I'm looking around and wondering and thinking about many different things, or looking for it. If I think I'm looking for something like an experience of awakening, a glimpse of what Bodhidharma was talking about, Moo can't do it. It needs me locked on with not a thought in the world about anything else. And just this right here, then the Moo can gobble me up, the real Moo. Let's see, any other questions or comments? Anything at all, really. Yeah, great, Patrick. Yeah.
Henry, thank you. I admit to sort of losing the thread here. What I thought I heard you say, Bodhidharma identified 4 elements or something like that. But then what? I got the first one, I think, but what are the other 3?
Okay, the 4 are, the first one is, it's a special mind-to-mind transmission outside scripture. Okay. Secondly, it doesn't rely on words and letters. Thirdly, it's pointing directly to the human heart-mind, untranslatable shin, I think, right? Shin, yeah. Untranslatable word, but means heart, mind, soul, heart of core of who we are. Pointing to that, and they're becoming Buddha, or discovering your awakened nature. That's 4. 1, special mind-to-mind transition. 2, not relying on words or letters. 3, pointing to your heart, mind, soul, core. 4, becoming Buddha.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, is that okay?
I was mistaking all 4 of them for the first one. I think
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, no, don't make that mistake. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just a note on that would be, I mean, it is important to say, I think, in a way that the implication of that might be that Zen isn't very much, by comparison with other practices, and other religions and other forms of Buddhism and other forms of I don't know, religious liturgy, worship, edifices of institutions and organizations. It's not a lot. It's just like the human being, taking a look at the human being. And of course you can see that to whatever extent that was then true, it sort of didn't exactly stay that way. I mean, I just since the last talk I gave, I've been in China for the first time, doing a tour of ancestral temples. I mean, in the sense of temples in China of our ancestors, basically in this very practice, You know, people like Tokusan or Deshan, who you'll have heard of, people like Obaku or Paijang, you know, people like Weinun, or Eino in Japanese, and 10 of these temples we went to, and you know, I was thinking of, like, I went to Mazu's temple, Baso's temple, and you know, he had this teaching, your very own mind, that's Buddha. So simple. Just your mind, that's Buddha. And we went to Yunmen's temple. He had the teaching, what is Buddha? Shit stick. You know, you've probably all heard that, or maybe some of you haven't heard that, but it's one of the famous koans. What is Buddha? Shit stick. You know, and he means it, you know. You can't get out of it, you know. And you know, cup. I think the last talk I gave was talking about the water jug. What's Buddha? Water jug. Pass me the water jug. You know, have a drink of water. You know, so, but you go to Yunmen's temple, and there's a massive, you know, massive series of great halls, and each hall is sort of 60, 70 feet tall with 3 giant golden Buddhas in it, and then 4 sort of some kind of, I don't know, guardian figures either side, and you know, it's a great big massive highly developed institution, you know, and I mean, of course it's been through a whole lot in its history in China, but you could, I mean, right now that's what it looks like, and it's some kind of reconstruction post-cultural revolution of what was presumably there. And so that, I mean, it seems that there's a little bit of this human tendency, or I don't know, social tendency, for when something's working and is good, to build up something around it. You know, and what you build up can get bigger and bigger, and it can start to become more important than the thing it's supposed to be supporting. You know, it can become in itself a great organization that needs a whole lot of all that human, social, you know, corporate support, and it stops being about the central insight that that was originally there. I mean, I think we're in a good position in Zen in the West right now that hasn't happened yet that much, because it's so new here, really. That you know, it's still pretty fresh and small, kind of like you know, small band scale, you know, like hunter-gatherer days, you know. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Anna, for the talk. I have a question. So, understanding that me and the world and me and Mu is one, how would you refer to the connection between the large self, the true self, and Mu, or the true self and the world? Because it's very hard to conceptualize Mu being inside of something or being enveloped by something. So how do you look at it?
Wait, let me see if I can understand. You're saying how would I conceptualize? You were talking about the true self?
The true self.
Yes.
And Mu.
Yeah.
How do they?
Well, are they two things? Are they separate in some way? I mean, you know, do you see what I mean? Like, why would we suppose that they're two things?
Because you said that the small self.
Yeah.
You said that the small self and Mu, the
Yeah.
small self and the world are
Yeah.
one. So, and we know that the large self includes the small one as well, and all our delusions with it. So,
but yeah, well, that's right. So that is the functioning, is the discovery of what Mu really is, and what the small self really is, of what this cup really is. It's not that this cup is a delusion, and really there's a great big self that's not that cup. That wouldn't be the way Zen sees it. This is the true self. This right here. This is it. This is how it shows up. I'll read you a little bit of the compiler. One of the conspirators, as it were, of the great work, the Blue Cliff Record, Coan Moo, that his Dharma teacher's teacher collected the koans in the Blue Cliff Record. It's a collection of 100 koans from 1028. And then Coan Moo, or Engo, who was that guy's Dharma successor, so 2 generations down, he wrote verses to it. And he also wrote letters. This is from a letter of his. The present perception is the truth, but the truth is beyond this perception. If you are attached to perception, then this is a perception. It's not arriving at the truth. Those who arrive at the truth go beyond perception, but they use perception without dwelling in perception. Okay? Did you follow that? When you pass directly through perception and get free of it, everything is the fundamental truth. So it's just sort of breaking what makes us think, it's just me and the cup. It's basically me that thinks that's just a cup, that isn't seeing the whole picture. But the whole picture, that cup is the whole picture. That's the beauty, really, of it, Is that okay? Yeah? Yeah?
While I pass the mic here, just a note to those online, feel free to unmute and we'll hear you here in the Zendo as well. So, yeah.
Thank you, Henry. Thank you so much. I'm a failure at Moo for many years. I just keep, it comes back, but I have never been diligent enough to have it come and grab me from behind, but maybe someday, who knows? But my question is about your trip to China. I'm curious if there were monastics in those temples that you visited, and did you get any kind of interaction with monastics, if there were monastics? And how old were they?
Yeah, it varied enormously. And the answer is yes, in every temple we met at least one monk, usually a head monk or abbot, depending on, it just varied from temple to temple. And like one of them, Obaku's temple, actually, that's Wang Po in Chinese. There was just one monastic, an old guy who was very kind and sweet, and it was strange. It was way up this little road up a valley, and the valley had these. It was absolutely beautiful. It had these little terraces for growing rice, about the size of this room, and because it was a narrow valley filled with bamboo and trees of different kinds up the sides, but only in the sort of main course of the valley could they make terraces at all. And you could see these little, earthen dikes at the edge of each terrace and stepping up the valley. And at the end of that, and then actually we were there for the beginning of the rice harvest. So one half of the road, again and again, would have these wicker mats laid out on it covered in rice, where they're drying the rice, the first harvest of the rice. And so all traffic would slow down. Well, there wasn't a lot of traffic, actually, but you'd have to go in the other lane. And at the end, finally, right up at the end of it, where the valley closed into the valley head, there was this temple of Obaku's, and it was very strange. It had just had a lot of reconstruction done. I mean, over the last few years, it looked like. So there were all these big halls that had been rebuilt or renovated, but still had scaffolding and weren't in use, and the sort of large dusty interiors. and two workmen, all we could see doing a little bit of gold leafing somewhere, you know, and then we met this guy, the I don't know whether abbot or head monk, older guy, and he sort of took us through, because they have, it's very, when you arrive at these temples, you typically see some kind of steps up and some sort of plaza-like space, and then one great big hall, and you go up into that, and if you go through it, there'll be another courtyard, and maybe two halls each side and one at the end. You go through that, another courtyard, another hall, another courtyard, and on, and you can't, only once you've been wandering through them do you gradually see how big they really are. Initially, you just get the impression, one whopping great big hall. But it turns out they go on back and back and back. But you don't get to see that until you've gone back further and further and further. And there's all these different halls, the Buddha hall, the Dharma hall, the this hall, the that hall, and side halls. And, you know, and so they're actually, it's a little bit, honestly, like an Oxford college where I grew up. These quads, they call them, the little courtyards, and you go back and back and back, you know, but in Obaku's one, finally we got back to where he was actually living, this guy, in an old brick building. It looks like an old barn from 16th, 17th century England, actually, is what it reminded me, like an old farmhouse. And they were growing a lot of stuff, giant squash and giant, what they called winter melons, which were actually, I think, a kind of squash, and all kinds of other stuff, corn and earthen floors and adobe-like interiors, and just real sort of old-style, simple kind of farming. Really, was what it was like. And this guy was just very sweet and generous. Gave us all little cups and beads and we had, and everywhere we went we had a sit. So we had a sit with him, 20 of us, in one of these old barn-like buildings at the back that was a kind of rough and ready hall with lots of kind of junk stored in the corner and old planks and I don't know, very dusty, but it had some mats and cushions, and we pulled them out and we all got down and did half an hour of Zazen, and it was wonderful just to sit there, and we did that in every temple that we went to, and it was very powerful. Actually, the very first one we went to was quite fittingly, because he was the first ancestor, the earliest ancestor of all the ones that we visited, was Wei Nung, the sixth ancestor of Zen. So there was Bodhidharma, and then it was passed on, that special transmission, mind to mind. One, Bodhidharma number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then Wei Nung. Wei Nung, Wei Ke, Sengcan, Daoxin, Hongren, Wei Nung. And so we went to Wei Nung's temple. It was actually the first one we went to. And that was marvelous. It's sort of similar to what I've just been describing, but much more in use. Lots and lots of monks. And we had lunch with them. There's all these kind of back buildings where the real life goes on. I mean, it similarly had these grand halls, like I was talking about. Similar, but with these great Buddhas in them and lots of these sort of long, I don't know what they are, like sort of streamers hanging down from the ceiling. And several of the places we went had at least one hall that was called a 10,000 Buddha hall, and because they would have 10,000, they'd have these. You can figure out how you get there if you could look at like little 6-inch squares, each with a little Buddha figurine, and you could see the sort of little margins every so often or something, and parapets. You can see, oh yeah, okay, so there's 100 in there, so you need 10 of those and you've got 1,000. That wall's got 3,000. Wow, you can sort of work it. You can see how they get up to these numbers, and anyway, but way in the back, again, through the grand presentation halls kind of thing, was all these things you'd get, again, in a sort of an institution like a college, where there's, sort of alleys, corridors, washing hanging up to dry, the smell of cooking somewhere, people chatting, laughing as they're doing chores, and all that sort of life of an institution going on. And so we got some taste of that and had lunch in this lovely big square tall room with benches, and you all sit facing the same way actually, and simple, just bowl, chopsticks, vegetarian food, very nice vegetarian food, so yes, life going on in the monasteries, some of them much more so than others. There was another one where we did see some monks, but I almost had the feeling, I don't know, maybe it's very skeptical of me, but I wasn't the only one who thought it. That there's somehow, I don't know, it didn't seem like it was very sincere practice or something. They were chanting something, singing something that, I don't know, maybe it was, I don't know, but they would all walk by, I don't know, it seems like there's a great mix of stuff going on in terms of levels of practice and seriousness of practice across the board, and some are very, but you can also see that the government's putting money into them, and typically they had 2 per province that they really chose as sort of flagship monasteries to put money into, and the others were sort of struggling. That was the setup that was explained to us by our guides. But the last thing I'll say, and then we'll close, is it was beautiful on this topic actually of the world and us. It was very lovely to see how the way I've described the monasteries won't have suggested this very much, but when you've got any vantage on them from a height, you see all these roofs. There's those, the rhombuses and parallelograms or whatever they are, the rooftops are very beautiful, and they seem to occupy their place in the landscape wonderfully, because they're usually at the foot of the mountain or at the crux where great mountainsides meet, because they're typically, they're down on the valley floor or near enough to it so that they can do the farming they had to do, because Zen was a tradition where you weren't relying on alms, you did farming, and they still seem to be doing that to some extent. And then around that are these unbelievably beautiful mountains covered in forest, and in some cases covered in bamboo forest. I don't know if any of you have seen Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Well, remember the bamboo fight, when they're doing all the kung fu on the bamboo? It's amazing. If you haven't seen it, it's well worth seeing. But it was like that, huge bamboo, forests of it, up the mountainsides. It was so beautiful. And then there in the bottom, this huddle of rooftops that just seemed to belong there. And it was actually amazing, again, at Yunmen's monastery. Yunmen means cloud gate, correct? Yeah, cloud gate. And they said, you could see these beautiful rooftops, and actually that one had a long kind of walkway, maybe quarter or half a mile long even, with a beautiful roof and gardens and stuff. And you could stand there and you could see these great mountains behind it. And in the afternoon, we were there all afternoon into the evening, and as it was getting late on this very hot sunny day, it's hot there, by the way, it was all in the 90s, always, between 92 and 98 kind of thing, in terms of temperature. But end of the afternoon, the weather changed. And they said, you see, this is why it's called Cloud Gate, because the clouds pour over the mountains. And actually, we saw the clouds starting to pour in this bright haze over the mountains, over the monastery, and a terrific crash of rain came down, and just briefly. And it was, I don't know, the symbiosis or whatever, the setting and the land and the monasteries and the practice, and you could feel it. It was very sort of harmonious, and often in the sitting especially would feel the landscape around, the mountains around. The master, who is the one celebrated in a koan from that monastery, but somehow you'd feel the wisdom that had been here, is still somehow here, And still somehow it is in that relationship. The mountain, the monastery, the person, the practice, the sitting, the stillness, the quiet, the wind, the rain, the sun, you know, the farming, the produce. Somehow it's all in that. The wisdom of it is present, and you could feel. I mean, it wasn't too fanciful really to feel the presence of the master, you know, because they're all finding the same thing. Wei Nung, the first one, he awakened when he heard the line, dwelling nowhere, mind comes forth. Dwelling nowhere, your very mind, your very self, your very existence, all this, your very experience, is bursting forth out of nowhere, you know. And then Wei Nung Nangaku Ejo was one of his students. We went to his monastery, Nanyue, and he said to, you know, one of his teachings was, you can't turn a brick into a mirror, no matter, like, because he was teaching the young Mazu, and Mazu said, he asked him, why are you sitting so much? And he said, I want to become a Buddha. That's why I'm sitting so much. And his Nanyue said to him, picked up a brick and a tile and started grinding the tile and the brick together. And Mazu said, why are you doing that? What do you? And he said, I'm turning this brick into a mirror. And he said, well, you can't do that. And he said, you can't become a Buddha. How are you going to become a Buddha? By meditating. You can't have your practice make you become that. See what I mean? You can't become what you already are. You know, and so again, what's the true mind? What really are you? What is your true heart mind? What is the awakened mind? What is the mind of Buddha? What is Buddha nature? What is your original nature that you've always had, never not had? That all things that always currently have right now, here now. What is it? You know, it's the same thing passed on. Wei Nung discovered it. Nangaku Ejo discovered it. Nangaku Ejo helped Mazu discover it. Mazu taught. It's a great string of pearls, you know. I can't remember. Mazu taught a lot of them. Okay, let it be said. He taught many of them, and on down it went. And here we are today, you know, still receiving the benefit of all their practice in a way, or at least all that vivid discovery, that real reality of our life, right here, now. Never at some other time. Never back then, 1,200 years ago, 1,300 years ago, 1,400 years ago. No, now. You know, so hence this place exists. This place right here. Okay, sorry to keep you so long. Thank you, everybody. Yeah.